The county salutes key partners in their efforts during the COVID-19 pandemic. In this edition, we salute Memorial Medical Center. When vaccinations first became available in the county, the team at Memorial Medical Center stepped up to provide vaccinations for healthcare workers and first responders, delivering over 20,000 doses in the first 6 months of the year. Without the MMC team taking on the lead role, the start of the
was just getting ready to call you. Really?
He said that your line was busy, so that's why he sent it downstairs.
Oh, I was just on the phone with him.
How are you? Hey.
I left my umbrella on the phone because they're like,
No, it would be an HHS question.
This one
I
goes with
record what's given to me, so if they don't put it in the packet to record,
How are you doing?
yeah, I can't record it, because I don't know what they want me to. Do you know what I'm saying?
But if it's a part of the contract, it should be in the packet.
No,
I'll check with them.
yeah, so if it's not in my packet, I don't record it, because I don't know what's missing, just like the misspelling of the, they didn't give me the attachment list. I have to, so I recorded it, and then I have to call and say, hey, I'm reading this right now, and it says there's an attachment. So unless it's given to me, I would have no idea what is supposed to be. Uh-oh.
That's what I resent you.
Yeah, I redid it again. Oh, no, I got it.
No. See, I didn't take notes. On the committee appointment. Yeah.
Thought I was right.
Yep, it works.
I'm not worried about being right or wrong, I just want it right.
Correct. Exactly. And then do you?
Yes. That is good.
How you doing, Steve? Hey, it's good news for you, right? Less work, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Things are looking really favorable.
I say we're not supposed, we don't have to wear a mask, but it doesn't hurt if we do, right?
It does not hurt if we do.
Okay, good.
And,
I'm on back on.
and I'm doing it simply to support those who don't have a choice.
Oh, I don't have a mask. This mask is important. I thought I had one of those. Yeah, here's one. Here, got it right here.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll put it back on.
No, it's the waterfalls, they were actually dry in the waterfalls. They were, a little low on the water. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I heard there was, well, it's not a rain, mudslide, so
Yeah.
thinking you might be impacted by that.
No, no, the whole time I was there, it rained one night.
I'm sure, I'm busy. I just want to thank you, I haven't been to, but I have a really good friend from you. Still be a friend in the case and in the now, so I know them part.
That's on my bucket list too.
I need to make copies. Oh, you did this to me, didn't you? Switch chairs on. Oh, Nelson. At some point, are you interested in coming over or going to dinner? One of my mates
Very good, how are you?
is obviously a Uber.
Side.
Meeting her
Saw that. Is that good?
way when you're
So, you know, I saw a couple things I'm gonna ask about. Not really sure.
her sister is.
The assessor gets money out of general fund and also gets some money in addition.
I'm not sure.
The Volvo building?
No.
I know you did. For storage, I know. No, I'm in favor of that.
Good? No? Are you getting any poll workers who are reluctant to work?
Not right now. Reimbursement process. For Memphis. We're about to go.
Get him to come here.
Whenever you're ready.
Ready?
How do you,
It's not, I've been mispronouncing it for a long time. Jessica's right there. Yeah.
The meeting is now called to order. We have the invocation by Rabbi Barry Smuggler from the Chabad Jewish Center.
Good morning. Almighty God, we stand before you in prayer. Look favorably upon the honorable members of the County Commission of our great county of Donand. We beseech you, Almighty and merciful God, to extend your grace to each and every member of this august body and bestow upon them the joy of life, good health, and prosperity. Bless these distinguished individuals who have chosen to make laws and decisions for the citizens of our county. Grant these public servants wisdom and understanding in their noble pursuit of justice and equality. The Jewish tradition tells us of 7 universal laws given to mankind by God through Noah, one of which instructs us to create a peaceful and moral society governed by law. Almighty God, grant that those assembled here be aware of your presence and this holy mission as they labor to enact just laws with honesty and integrity. Please join me with prayer. Almighty God, we beseech of you that our county should serve as a beacon of light for people of all faiths and walk of life. May Dona help achieve the goal so powerfully stated in our Pledge of Allegiance, so that America is truly one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as the priestly blessing from the book of Numbers says, may God bless you and guard you. May God shine his countenance upon you and be gracious to you. May God turn his countenance towards you and grant you peace. And let us say, amen.
Thank you, Rabbi. Mr. Macias, can you lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
certainly, Madam Chair. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Brandy, may we have the roll call of commission members present and determination of quorum, please?
Commissioner Ellens,
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Here.
Commissioner Chaparro, Vice Chair Murillo,
Present.
Chair Sanchez.
And Madam Chair, there is a quorum present. I just want to note for the record that Commissioner Sanchez will be arriving within the next half hour. Commissioner Chaparro is dealing with some matters this morning. I anticipate her arrival or notification as to what time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any changes to the agenda, Mr. Macias?
Madam Chair, I certainly do. Just one item. I'm asking for the commission to allow the item number 8, which deals with the audit report, to be moved up immediately following our employee recognition, in order to accommodate the schedule of Mr. Farley Veneer, who is the president of Hinkle and Landers, who performed the audit.
Mr. Macias, do we need to have a voting on this item?
I don't believe, normally we don't take a vote, but if there's no opposition, the chair then has the authority to move the item forward.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Macias, can you go ahead and present us with the pet showcase, please.
Again, for everyone here in the audience, and they may be viewing the proceedings, the County Commission takes advantage at every commission meeting to promote the adoption of animals from the Animal Services Center. We have both a cat and a dog of the week. Not to show any preference between the two, I will start with the cat of the week, who is Stewie, and 5 years old, and a domestic short hair. I have a big-hearted, sweet boy with a whole lot of love to give. Not only am I handsome, but I have a soft personality to go along with it. Most times you can find me in my cubby, snoozing on my blankets, so that I know how to have a good night in. I'm perfect for those who want a loving lab cat, and that is Stewie. Our dog of the week is Indigo, 2 years old, medium size. My ideal kind of activity is a walk in the park or maybe a hike in the mountains. I also would love to hang out and cuddle with my family afterwards, of course. I sure am a handsome boy who is sure to make anyone's life much more complete. And again, so we're promoting this week the adoption of Stewie and Indigo, or any other animal at the Animal Services Center. Again, there's going to be an adoption event at the Farmers Market this next Saturday from 9 to 12. We encourage anyone who has gotten tired of human companionship to reach out and find an animal to love. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Now, our next item is employee recognition. The commission will recognize Doña Ana County employees for their years of service in Doña Ana County. So we have the first, Lieutenant Benito Casillas with the Sheriff's Department, 20 years of service. So, Mr. Macias.
Madam Chair. Mr. Casillas is even better looking than the animals. He's looking very handsome today. Again, I think most of you are aware, but for those of you who aren't aware here in the audience, the Commission takes advantage at every meeting, although we didn't so much during the COVID period, but now that things are abating a little bit more, we're taking advantage of recognizing certain employees that reach a certain threshold of longevity here with the county. And of course, today it is Lieutenant Benito Ben Casillas. He joined Doña Ana County in the Sheriff's Office as a Sheriff Deputy, uncertified, in December of 2001. After leaving temporarily, he was rehired. So he lost his path for a little while, but knew better to come back to us. Thank you. After he was rehired in the same role in 2002, and this time he stuck around, graduating from the Dasso Academy in 2003. He became a deputy sheriff certified in April of 2003 and was promoted to Deputy 2 in 2005. He was promoted to Dasso Corporal in 2009 and became a Sergeant 10 Patrol in 2011. And he was promoted to his current role of Lieutenant in January of 2021. Throughout his career, but especially in recent years, Lieutenant Casillas was tasked with unique duties, and he does not hesitate to take on new assignments and even overseeing other divisions as needed to ensure that operations run smoothly and personnel are properly guided. Over the past year, he started the new intelligence division in Dasso, building it up from the ground. He defined the division's purpose and guided its operations development, making many large arrests possible and coordinating with other agencies in the region. Lieutenant Casillas said establishing a successful intelligence unit that works collaboratively with Dasso, within Dasso, as well as other law enforcement agencies in the area, is a major milestone in his own career. He is proud of establishing the unit in such a way that it continues to grow and excel for years to come. Lieutenant Casillas' supervisor, Captain Jeremy Hash, there's Captain Hash, so I make sure to quote you properly, said that Ben is consistently dependable and is especially valuable because of his ability to work well with personnel and other DASO officers. Lieutenant Casillas said he is proud that throughout the course of his career, he's been given the opportunity to hold positions where he works closely with and builds partnerships, collaborating with local and federal law enforcement agencies. He's especially proud of the positive impact his work has had on improving the safety of our community. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please join the Commission in extending a very special congratulations to Lieutenant Benito Casillas on his 20-year anniversary of dedicated service, not only to DASO, but to the residents of Doña County. Lieutenant Casillas. And again, the Commission is extending to Lieutenant Benito Casillas in appreciation for and recognition of 20 years of dedicated service to Doña County on behalf of the Board of Commissioners and County Management. Again, from February the 25th of 2002 through today, through the February the 25th of 2022. Congratulations again. Sheriff and Captain Hash, will you please join us here in the front for some pictures? Another recognition, but this time for 25 years, Mr. Matthew Gray. Matt Gray joined the Doña Ana Sheriff's Office as a cadet field deputy in February of 1997. He attended and graduated from the DASO Academy and began his duties on patrol. After earning certification, he became a field deputy and was reclassified to sheriff's deputy in October of 1999. That year, he accepted a lateral move and became part of the K-9 division. Mr. Gray became Transport Services Coordinator in 2002, which is his current role. Lieutenant Joe Medina, his supervisor, said Matt is a pleasure to work with because he's dependable, requires little to no supervision, and works well with colleagues. Matt has a great work ethic, stays on top of his work assignments, and develops excellent working relationships with counterparts in other agencies. Even on his days off, Matt is readily available to answer questions or help when needed. While off duty, Matt enjoys working on his parents' ranch, going on hikes and camping, Chicago Bears games. He didn't enjoy them that much this year, but maybe next year. And muscle cars. He looks forward to retirement when he will have more time to enjoy all of these activities. He thanks his parents, Joe and Karen for supporting him throughout his career. He also thanks the following colleagues with whom he has worked and looked up to: Bill McNeil, Joseph Gonzalez, Bobby Holden, Mike Sanchez, Dave Fernandez, Jerry Madden, Rick Radassa, Josh Bryant, Andy Luna, Scott Chavez, and Mark Chavez. And if any of you think that your name was left off this long list, then please let us know and we'll add your name to it. He would also like to highlight his gratitude to Diana Granado for everything she has done to make him a better person. Please join the commission in thanking Mr. Matthew Gray for 25 years of dedicated service to our community and to the courts. And Matt, just a small token in appreciation for your efforts these last 25 years. Matthew Gray, in appreciation for and recognition of 25 years of dedicated service to Doña County on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners and County Management. Again, Mr. Matthew Gray, thank you. And Sheriff, would you join us for some pictures as well? And if Lieutenant Joe Medina is present, would you please come forward?
Could I have you on this side? Yeah, thank you. Got it. Thank you.
All right, we have two more, and they are, unfortunately or fortunately from their perspective, retirements. Let me have Mary Jo Apodaca please come forward. Great glasses. Mary Jo Apodaca, also known as MJ or Mama Joe, joined Doña County as a booking clerk at the detention center on the 5th of September of 1995. In 1998, she was promoted to evidence traffic clerk in the Sheriff's Department. Over the next 4 years, though her duties did not change significantly, her title changed 4 times, from evidence clerk to evidence technician to evidence inventory, and then back to evidence technician. We're going to have a discussion with our Human Resources Department about changing title. Oh, and some raises. Okay, well, too late now. In 2005, her role was reclassified to evidence supervisor, which is her current title. Regardless of the title, Mary Jo takes pride in taking a grossly disorganized evidence room and shaping it into one of the best in the state of New Mexico. It takes certain personal traits to enjoy this type of work. One needs to be organized, disciplined, detail-oriented, and enjoy maintaining a structured environment. Gosh, she must be hard to deal with. In 2004, she became the 3rd individual in the state to be certified a property and evidence specialist through the International Association for Property and Evidence Incorporated, and maintained her certification throughout her career. The certification aligns DASO with the criminal justice system and lends the agency the credibility and assurance that internationally recognized standards and best practices are followed to manage evidence. In 2007, she helped create the New Mexico and Property Tech Association, becoming its vice president in 2010. Since 2012, she has served as president of the organization, which comprises more than 325 members. Her supervisor, Captain Jeremy Hash, has known Mary Jo for more than 20 years and said she is super strict when it comes to the proper submission of evidence. It is this discipline that ultimately keeps the entire department out of trouble with the courts and helps secure successful prosecutions. He said he cannot recall a time when evidence's chain of custody caused a suppression of evidence at trial. Mary Jo's most recent achievement is bringing a rapid DNA machine to the sheriff's office. It provides a readout of a suspect's DNA to match a crime scene within 90 minutes. Donand County Sheriff Office is one of the few agencies in the state with access to this fast new technology. Mary Jo consistently goes above and beyond to help detectives collect, document, and enter evidence, often staying past the end of her shift to ensure accuracy. You don't have to agree with everything, okay? Captain Hash wishes Mary Jo an enjoyable and well-deserved retirement after a lifetime of service to help protect and serve Donand County residents. However, he said, it is impossible to imagine that we will do without her guidance and help in the future. You want to reconsider your retirement? No, okay, no. That's a no, Captain Hash. As she approaches retirement, Mary Jo thanks her husband, Sammy, along with her sons, Gabriel, Brandon, Austin, and KC, for their unyielding and loving support. She also thanks her sweet mother for always being there every time she needed her, along with her beloved dad for giving her the best advice. Stay at Dasso. Do not venture off to another agency. He was right, because at Dasso she met admirable people, making lifelong friends, took pride in her work, and enjoyed stability. Thinking about retirement, she's looking back at the activities she enjoyed most, including softball, volleyball, and what she looks forward to is the most is spending time with her family and close friends. She enjoys 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzles and taking care of Daisy and Duke, the Great Danes in the family. She said it is now her turn to be a supportive wife to her husband, Sammy, as he focuses more on his own career. Ladies and gentlemen, a very special recognition. Please join the commission in recognizing a very special individual for 25 dedicated years to this community. 26. I was corrected, 26 years, but who's counting? Oh, you are, okay. And again, this very special platter, I guess you'll be able to put your 1,000 pieces of a jigsaw puzzle on it. In honor of your service, Mary Jo Apodaca, retired with distinction after 26 years of loyal service on the 28th of February of 2022. Congratulations. So Sheriff Captain Hash, and if there's any family members of Ms. Apodaca, please come forward.
I could have you all take a couple steps. Perfect, right there. Commissioner Ellens, could you move to your right a little bit? Commissioner Ellens, to your right just a little bit? Perfect, thank you. Got it, thank you.
All right. Our last recognition of the morning from the clerk's office, Mr. Andrew Andy Perez. Andy Perez joined Doña County Clerk's office on the 1st of April of 1996 as a seasonal elections assistant. He became a full-time election clerk in August 1997 and was promoted to voting machine technician in 2001. But he was soon on a temporary status again, as he was on a short-term assignment as election administrator from 2001 to 2003. His role was reclassified as lead voting machine technician in 2006, and in 2015, he was promoted to the Board of Elections supervisor. Looking back at his career, he is most proud of developing some and helping develop many new procedures for the election process. The updated procedures made a major impact and improved the election process for everyone in Doña County. He also enjoyed developing new and separate procedures when the clerk's office received new voting machines. He noted that since 1996, there has been 3 different voting machine systems in Doña County. Every time a new system is introduced, it means new and different voting machines and procedures. And he said that he usually worked about 300 overtime hours or more during each election. During the busiest times, he was able to help ensure fair and accurate elections thanks to his life partner, Angelica. Through the years, she made many sacrifices, coordinating and arranging countless tasks to support him while raising their 6 children. He said, without Angelica's support, I would have been lost. He is happy that he will finally be able to take his kids trick-or-treating, since there was normally early voting during Halloween, and he sacrificed those fun times while working for the Bureau of Elections. He credits J. Joe Martinez for believing in him and teaching him many life lessons, such as how to be a better supervisor and a better person in life. Joe was a stand-in as county clerk in 2000 and appointed Andy to the elections administrator role that same year. The position was renamed Supervisor of Elections. He is grateful for Sandra Bali's support and coordination to get the many necessary tasks completed for each election to run smoothly and successfully. He thanks Karen Archuleta for working closely with him and teaching him many useful skills that helped him become a better supervisor. And he thanks all of the clerk's staff because they work together to be a better clerk's office for the public. As much as he appreciates his co-workers, he looks forward to being a regular voter and not having to administer elections. Looking back, he also thanks his mom, Priscilla Perez, for raising him and never giving up on him. He thanks his dad, Richard Perez, who passed away a year ago. He strives to do things every day that he hopes makes his dad proud of him, and you have. Overall, he is excited to spend more time with his 6 children and 2 grandchildren. He might consider coaching soccer and t-ball. Ladies and gentlemen, again, please join the commission in a special recognition for one of the most positive, upbeat employees that we've ever had here in Doña County, Mr. Andy Perez.
Mr. Macias, Lindsay would like to say a few words.
I'm sorry?
Lindsay wants to say a few words.
I know this is not typically traditional, so if you guys will be gracious in allowing me to say a few words. Andy, I so appreciate you. I joined the clerk's office. Oh, and by the way, I'm not sure if this is a 1 or a 10. Andy and I and Amanda have a rating system because when in elections are about rising to the challenges, problem solving on your feet. So when you see Andy walking towards your office, you want to know, is it a 1 or is it a 10, right? Before we start the conversation. How bad is the fire? How can we navigate it? And I just appreciate you rising to the occasion. We know that our expectations have been high, and it's been awesome to see you grow and help build the team that we have going at the clerk's office. And so I just appreciate your service so personally, because I came into the office during an incredible time in which a lot of things were in transition, and we navigated that together. So I really appreciate you.
Don't let the kids run off with this one, okay? In honor of your service, Andrew Pettis retired with distinction after 25 years of loyal service on the 28th of February of 2022. Congratulations, Andy. Let me have, Madam Clerk, if you would please join us for a photograph. I believe family members, including Angelica, are present. If they would come forward. And yes, please come forward.
Could I have you in the green just up to your right, just a little perfect? I'm not getting everybody here. There we go. Got it. Thank you.
Hold on, can you guys get one more second? Sorry.
Got it. Andy.
Andy. Can we around a little? I need to pass that.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, there's something going on here, and I can't figure out what it is. You know, the sheriff has 3 people up that are over 20, 25 years, but they don't leave. And then we have one person who's leaving at 26 years. And then we have another person leaving at 25 years. What's going on at the sheriff's department to make everybody not want to leave? I'm trying to figure that out. And by the way, but I also want to say thank you to everyone for your continued service and dedication to supporting the community of Donand. I know, especially the Sheriff's Department and the Clerk's Department, you guys have been asked to go above and beyond the call of duty in so many occasions in the last, well, 3 or 4 years that I've been here at least. And I can't tell you how much I recognize and I appreciate the dedication and service that you guys provide. And thank you so much. Thank you for honoring your comrades. And thank you for being here today and supporting what we do. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, with that completes our employee recognition. Let me just confirm, I understand that Mr. Veneer with the audit was asking to go, is it still after the commission? You're sure? Tell me. All right, so with your permission, we'll do the audit report after commission input has been completed. Mr. Chairman, good morning, Commissioner Sanchez. We are at that point in the agenda for public input.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, for starting off this meeting. Are any members of the public here to provide input to the commission? Anything we'll welcome up at this time. We'll have 3 minutes to speak. We ask, though, if it is for an agenda item, we ask that you wait until the agenda item is up for discussion. Okay. We're not seeing anybody for public input. Move on to staff input. Mr. Macias, is there any staff input?
There is, actually. I believe that we have a video presentation and some other information for the commission.
Good morning, Chair Sanchez and commission members. I'm Stephen Lopez from the Office of Emergency Management. And as happened at the last meeting, we want to recognize community partners who have helped us get to this point in the pandemic response. Now that things are starting to look so much better for us as a county. And so today we have a video that we would like to show recognizing Memorial Medical Center's efforts. Go ahead and start the video.
This week, Donand County salutes key partners in their efforts during the COVID-19 pandemic. In this edition, we salute Memorial Medical Center. When vaccinations first became available in the county, the team at Memorial Medical Center stepped up to provide vaccinations for healthcare workers and first responders, delivering over 20,000 doses in the first 6 months of the year. Without the MMC teams taking on a lead role, the start of the vaccination campaign would have been much slower and would have put healthcare workers from many different employers at risk. Join us in saluting Memorial Medical Center. Thank you for being a valued member of our community.
So commissioners, again, we'd just like to really thank publicly Memorial Medical Center for taking that very early lead role in helping get vaccinations out to our community. It was very instrumental in helping protect so many people, especially those at highest risk in Donand County. And I'm happy to take any questions that the commission might have.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Are there any questions for Ms. Lopez?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Ellens?
what's the situation with hospitalization?
Our hospitalizations are looking significantly better. The last 3 weeks, we have shown marked improvement. Both our admissions into the hospitals and our general bed use are really in good position right now from a COVID standpoint. Our fatalities have come way down at the hospitals, which is also a really good indicator. Our ICU space does still continue to be a little bit stretched from COVID, but those numbers are also showing continual improvement over the last 2 weeks.
Are you able to adequately treat non-COVID patients?
At this time, yes, sir. There has not been a need to cancel elective procedures that I have heard of from either of our hospitals.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ellens. Are there any questions for Mr. Lopez? Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you to Memorial Medical Center.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I may address the commission, the recent legislative session that ended, and again, it really doesn't end until the governor has had an opportunity to review all of the legislation that is passed, including the state budget, including all of the capital outlay. But there's preliminary signs that are actually extremely encouraging. There's approximately almost $34 million that are contained within the current state budget for capital projects related to Donand County government. Let me start with the very largest, which is incredibly encouraging. There is $20 million for the Crosswinds or cargo runway in Santa Teresa at the jetport. Certainly this is not enough money to complete the project, but it is a phenomenal first step. And again, I'm hoping Mr. Bill Provence, who's our manager at the jetport, is still out on vacation and not available to us, but upon his return, we'll be meeting with different agencies to see how we're able to leverage this money. There is also a $3.4 million allotment, basically for the rehabilitation or rebuilding of what is called Gardner Dam. It is a dam that was breached during the flooding near La Union. This dam is not in La Union proper, but it is south of La Union, and there is $3.4 million to basically redo that flood control project. Again, something incredibly encouraging. Let me just note a few other major ones. There is 1.7 million that is in the budget for an election warehouse construction, and that certainly is through the advocacy of our county clerk. Again, we'll be looking at that in terms of the total amount of money that would actually be necessary for construction, but this is certainly a notable allotment of money. There is 1.7 million new monies for Branham diversion or dragonfly to address flooding issues on the East Mesa. There is $1.4 million for flood control improvement projects in near the community of Dona, and actually more related to the Elks area. We have $250,000 for fairground improvements, $150,000 for the 3rd Judicial District Court project. There is $400,000 for the Anthony Fire Station construction. There is $175,000 for the Chaparral Flood Control Project, $75,000 for the Public Health Department improvements in Chaparral. There is $500,000 for the De La O Visitors Center. There is $180,000 for the Dolores Wright Bike Trail construction. There is $300,000 for the Dolores Wright Phase 2, Dolores Wright Park Phase 2 improvements. There is also $550,000 for the Dolores Wright Park splash pads construction, $490,000 for additional improvements to the drainage, flood drainage in La Union. There's $550,000 for our wastewater treatment system in the southern part of the county. There's $200,000 for public health building HVAC improvements, and $100,000 in radios. There's $200,000 that are specifically earmarked for the Sheriff's Department related to mobile radio units. There's $30,000 for the Sheriff's substation improvements. I think that you are aware that the substation in Chaparral is not being used because of structural related matters. This certainly will help address that. And there's another $250,000 for Dolores Wright Park ballpark improvements. There's $400,000 additional monies for the El Camino Real road improvements, which are in District 5, Commissioner Sanchez's district. And then there is $490,000 in the Tres Caballos Road construction project. And I believe that we already had $400,000 from this last session. So I believe that that will allow us to undertake a more comprehensive road project in that area. There's another $150,000 in a specific piece of legislation, but it's not clear exactly what their purpose is. Again, all of these things potentially are subject to veto by the governor, but I don't see any one of these that would trigger that. And I certainly know that the governor was incredibly supportive of trying to really have an impact related to the improvement of trade and the improvement of the construction of a cargo airplane runway at the jetport. So overall, it looks very, very promising. Not that we got all the money that was necessary for some of these projects, but we certainly are doing well under the outcome from the legislative session, and I'll do a distribution of this information to the commission. It's something that just came in to me late yesterday afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Macias. Are there any questions for Mr. Macias, County Manager? Okay. All right, so we're on to county elected officials input. Is there any County elected officials that would like to provide input at this time? Okay. Commission input. Any members of the board that would like to provide input at this time?
Mr. Chair,
Madam Vice Chair.
I have a question. When we did the redistricting on changes for the districts, I want to make sure, when does it start? Because I'm jurisdiction over Chaparral, right? So when does it change when it goes northern part? Until next year? Because I have a lot of constituents from Chaparral that need assistance on certain items, but then I have people from Vado calling me as well, calling me and telling me that I am under, that they're in my jurisdiction as well. So I just want to make sure, because I don't want to step over people's toes, and I just want to make sure, am I still with Chaparral or not?
Yes, ma'am, you are, and you will be until the end of this calendar year. And it would be at that point when the redistricting actually takes place. Now, in terms of the voting, then the residents within the districts that will change are going to be voting. So say if you were up for re-election, but you're not, the individuals in Chaparral will be voting now in District 3. But the formal change occurs at the beginning of 2023.
Okay, so I still take care of the constituents in Chaparral.
So if constituents are calling you from Chaparral, then yes, that remains your responsibility. I believe that Vado would remain the responsibility of Commissioner Ellens.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Are there any other comments, input? All right. Then we're on to agenda item number 1, which is the meeting minutes from February 8th, 2022. If I can, are there any comments or changes to the meeting minutes? All right, if I can get a motion and a second for approval.
I so move.
Moved by Madam Vice Chair. Commissioner Ellens, if I can take that as a second. All right. Any last moments for input? All right. Brandy, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Ellens?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo?
Yes.
And Chair Sanchez?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, item number 8 had been previously moved to the next item on the agenda, which is the audit report. And I believe that we have Mr. Farley Veneer available to us.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Macias. So we're on to agenda item number 8, a resolution and presentation of the Donand County audit report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. If I can get a motion and a second to begin the discussion.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Ellens,
Second.
second by Madam Vice Chair. Okay. Farley, are you on? Mr. Venner, are you there?
He's saying that he's waiting for the host to let him in.
Okay. I don't know, Felipe, if you caught that. It sounds like he's waiting for the host to allow him into the WebEx room. Okay, Mr. Venner, are you there? It looks like you're on Farley, it looks like you're on mute.
Mr. Venner is here.
All righty. So we will bring your presentation up, and then the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Great. Good morning, commissioners. This is Farley Venner here to do a public presentation of the results of the 2021 audit, and I shall go through these PowerPoint slides to summarize the results. So and move on. I don't know if I have control over these screens or.
I don't believe so, but I think when you need the next slide, we can advance the slide.
Great. So these are the items we'll cover, and it'll be the auditor's communications that we share to those on the governing board, and the results of the audit, any findings, recommendations, and then we have several years of financial trends that we show, and then a reminder about new standards that are coming that will impact the county in future years. So page 3 is our team. So I was the partner in charge. Caitlin ran the audit, and we had staff helping us, Leilani and Susan. And page 4 is really outlines the scope of our work. So we conduct 2 audits. We have a financial statement audit and what's called the single audit. It's auditing the federal awards. And for the financial statements, we determine if the numbers are materially correct. We look at the internal control structure of the organization. And there's also some state audit rule compliance testing that we are required to do based on that statute that we show at the bottom of that table. And last thing to note there is we have limited fraud procedures we do. It's not a forensic accounting or audit, but we do consider the possibility of fraud, and we inquire at different levels. And some of our testing are considered fraud procedures. And for the single audit, we determine if the entity is in compliance with the major programs that are selected. And it's a dual testing, so we test and give an opinion on that compliance. And we also test the internal control over the compliance. All this information rolls up into the one report that we provide for all of those that need good fiduciary information, the elected officials, management, and the public can see this information once it's uploaded to the Office of the State Auditor's website. And moving to page 5 is just outlining the responsibility. So it's a required communication to basically communicate this to those charged with governance. So in this case, the commission members. So just explains that management's responsible for quite a bit: the accounting policies, internal controls, the numbers, which are the financial statements and trial balance, and estimates that are needed in the numbers. We need to allocate amounts at different funds or different areas. And then the representation letter that management provides once the audit is completed. Before we complete that audit, we ask for that representation letter, which indicates that there's no scope limitations. Management has given us everything we needed to conduct the audit properly. And then our job as auditors is to give an opinion on the financial statements as well as the single audit. It's based on reasonable assurance, so not absolute assurance. We do test and sample. We don't look at every single transaction. And also, we emphasize here that we do get an understanding of the internal controls, to do our planning and understand where to audit, but we're not offering an opinion on the internal controls. Moving to page 6 is the accounting practices for the year. Year over year, they are consistent with one large change here is that there was a GASB, a new professional standard that was put out and needed to be implemented, and it's related to the fiduciary funds. So funds that the county holds, for example, all the property taxes that are collected and then distributed to the different organizations in the county. So that was a large change. And then self-funded insurance liability was also had a change in it. Then we talk about the adjustments. So adjustments that we made as auditors And then we call them proposed adjustments because management will make the final decision of whether they accept it and put it into the county's accounting system. And one of those adjustments, just for presentation purposes, 8 adjustments that do not go into the general ledger, adjustments that were provided by the client, the county. We had 18 adjustments while the audit was ongoing, and some adjustments. So we have the full accrual government-wide presentation. So 19 adjustments are done there. Adjustments that we could pass on because they're immaterial, but we do need to disclose those to management. None. No disagreements with management. Management did not consult with other accountants while the audit was ongoing. Did not discuss any specific issues before we started the audit. No significant difficulties performing the audit. Estimates. The main estimates are the allocation of funding sources, depreciation. We could say the unfunded pension fund amounts that are provided by other CPAs or accountants. Those numbers are put in our estimates as well. And highlighting any areas that we'd like to highlight in the report itself, we would bring attention to the fiduciary fund restatement. So that's related to that GASB 84 that I mentioned earlier. There was required to restate the numbers related to fiduciary funds. Significant risks. So as auditors, we do what's called a risk assessment. It's a planning tool. And that just means how do we audit? What's our audit plan? And where do we need to focus our efforts and do extended procedures to ensure that the risk of misstatement or due to error or fraud is mitigated. So these are the areas we have high levels of transactions like revenue, expenses, and payroll, all related to cash and capital assets because of the largeness of the area, and it can be fairly complex, in debt for the same reason. Last thing to note there is the SEPA, Schedule of Expenditures, a federal award. That's all the federal dollars that are spent, and just ensuring that that is a complete schedule and that's accurate. So moving on to page 7. This is the results of the audit. So on the financial statements, it was an unmodified, clean opinion, and whether there were any findings here. Material weaknesses, no. Significant deficiencies, none. Non-compliance material to the finding, none. So no findings of that type with the financials. And then on the federal award or single audit side, that's an unmodified opinion, the cleanest opinion you can get. And any findings there. So material weaknesses, no. There was one finding related to the federal awards CARES Act money, which is considered a significant deficiency. And so that type of finding gets disclosed based on that standard 2 CFR section 200.516. And here's the programs that we audited under the single audit requirement. It's the CARES Act money and the emergency rental assistance. So those 2 programs. The county does qualify as a low-risk auditee, and that means that you have not had material weakness findings in at least the last 2 years. Your data collection form, the Federal Audit Clearinghouse uploading the audit to that website has been done timely in at least the last 2 years. So those are some of the requirements to get to be a low-risk auditee. Page 8 is a summary of the findings. So we look at prior year findings and whether they've been resolved or repeated. So there were 3 comments last year related to vendor controls, the federal subgrantee reporting compliance, and unclaimed property. All of those have been resolved and were not present in the 2021 audit. And the one comment the county does have is related to that CARES Act funding. Basically, I would say because it's a new program, it has to be done the word emergency is in the title there. It's getting those funds out quickly to make sure that they're effective. So that was the one comment related to the organization. Certain documentation was not always there. So moving on to page 9. Now we just have trends. So I'll keep these fairly brief, and we just have a 9-year trend here. So the organization or the county has $418 million in assets. You can see that is trended quite higher than the prior years. The liabilities, and we use this terminology, deferred inflows, is a type of liability. So that number also increased quite a bit. And we'll see some details on these numbers. But a big portion of it is the unfunded pension and what's called OPEB liabilities for those plans. The amount that needs to be invested to cover those plans went up quite a bit. And so the equity is at $216 million. And this is full accrual. So these are including all the capital assets, all the long-term debt. And as we'll see in the upcoming slides, there's a lot of unfunded liabilities related to those plans. So moving on to page 10, we see a little bit of detail. The capital assets is the largest portion of assets at $204 million, and the investments $134 million. So you see that number went up quite a bit from prior periods. Cash at $15 million, and receivables very constant compared to last year. Last number to mention, the deferred outflow. So type of asset, it's mostly related to contributions to the OPEB plan and the PARA plan. So that's what makes up the assets. And then we do subtotal it with and without the deferred outflow, because sometimes it's just nice to see it without those numbers, since they are mostly outside of the county's control and budgeting. So you can see that the $381 million is where the county stands without the outflows. Moving to page 11, the liabilities and deferred inflows. So we see that largest number is that net pension liability related to PARA. So $90 million liability. And so you see quite a bit of an increase there. The unearned revenue, so these are grants in advance received, so there's a big increase there of $36 million. And then the OPEB liability at $32 million, so that's the retiree health care plan, another large, you can see the large increase. So those are your big amounts, and then the bonds and note payable, those numbers are, I would say, historically on the lower side of 21 million. And then the other numbers that they start decreasing in size. Moving on, page 12 is the equity or net position over time. So the biggest portion of equity is invested in the capital assets, $182 million. Restricted funds, so funds that are earmarked for a specific purpose, that's $77 million. And then what's remaining there, and we show it as a deficit at $43 million, is that's unrestricted. So we subtotal it out at the very bottom of the page to say we'll pull out the unfunded liabilities from pension, for PARA and retiree health care, and you have a positive $46 million, but you just see the impact of those liabilities. Moving to page 13, we have the change in net position, basically profit loss statement for the county. And the revenues are at $160 million. So that number is on the high side, as you see, trend-wise, the highest it's ever been. And expenses are a little less than last year at $154 million. Again, I'm always reminding everyone here that these numbers are full accrual. They're including the pension expenses and things like that that go into these.
Mr. Venner,
required to go into the numbers.
Can you hold on a second?
Government-wide.
Felipe, can we get the next slide? There we go. Thank you. Okay, sorry, we were on the previous slide, Mr. Venner.
Oh, sorry about that. So yeah, just a quick recap. That changing that position, page 13, is like the profit loss for the county. And so I was saying that 160 million is I would say that's the highest amount of revenues that the county has ever experienced. Expenses are a little bit lower than last year at 154 million. And so that change in that position is a positive 6.6 million. And a little bit of restatement that's related to mostly that GASB 84 new accounting standard that needed to be implemented. And then I was saying, just as a reminder, that these do include all the expenses and it can affect the revenues on a full accrual basis, including expenses related to those unfunded liabilities. Moving to page 14 is now we just kind of look at certain sections of the revenue, and we have the program revenues. A little charge for services, a little bit less. Historically, these numbers are, a little bit less than what they were in 2019 and a little bit less than 2020. The operating grants at 15 million, so those are on the high side. For, as you can see, certain years they're higher. Back in 2013, you had quite a bit there. And then capital grants is a little bit less. Again, those are a little project-based. So overall, you had 41 million in the program revenue category. So moving to page 15 is the general revenues. And so that includes GRT, which is at the highest, it may be the highest ever, but it's definitely the highest in the last 9 years at 57 million. The property taxes are also on the high side at 50 million. And then you have some other revenue sources. Payments in lieu of taxes at 3.3 million, and then they decrease in size going there. So that adds up to 118 million. Page 16, expenses by type. So we just look at the main functions of the county and put them in those categories. Seeing that public safety was the largest expense this year in 2021 at 62 million, the general government 47 million, and public works almost 21 million. Health and welfare very close to last year at 15 million. So page 17, just use a dollar to show the split in percentages or how the dollar was spent. So general government, 32 cents on the dollar, public safety, 42 cents on the dollar, and so forth. And we compare it to last year, and you just see how those numbers compare. Page 18 is new accounting standards that are coming to the county, and the leases could be have a major impact, as leases in prior years, the majority of leases would require a disclosure footnote of a commitment that the county was in, and just explaining how much was spent and how long that contract or commitment was for. But going forward, this is going to be, the leases are going to become an asset as well as a liability. So the use of some space or a copy machine will now move to the balance sheet as an asset, and will also liability will be amortized over the life of the lease. So it's quite a bit of a change, and it will be a big project for the county. We're ready for this. If the county has any questions, let us know. We'd be happy to help in any way we can. So that's the major one to be prepared for. Moving on to page 19, this just goes on a little bit more just summary information about leases. It's called GASB 87. Page 20, we always give our thanks. It's a big project to do the audit. We we are asking lots of questions and need lots of information in order to test and audit and put everything together. So we do appreciate all the departments, and we, of course, we work very closely with finance, management, and the treasurer's office. So thank you for all the support. And that's it. I can stand for any questions or discussion at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Venner. Are there any questions on the audit for Mr. Venner? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Madam Vice Chair.
so we have 4 findings, right? And 3 of them have resolved, so there'll be just 1 finding that they need to resolve, is that correct? The total will be 4 findings or 3? I mean, or 1?
Mr. Venner, did you get that? I think.
Yes, sir.
I think the slide that was referring to it, I think were the 3 previous, there were 3 previous findings and then 1 new finding, if I recall.
Yeah, if we moved over, I don't know if we can put that up, but it's on page 8 of the PowerPoint. So it really what occurred here was there were 3 findings in 2020. And the auditors, one of our responsibilities is to say, well, did those findings get resolved or did they repeat? And the good news for the county is they were all resolved. And so in 2021, you only had 1 finding, which was that related to the CARES Act funding.
Okay. Well, that's really good that we have just 1 finding. This is one of the best audits. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Murillo. Are there any other questions? Okay. Not hearing anything else, Mr. Venner. I appreciate all your support, Ms. Dawood. The County Treasurer, thank you so much for you and your office's support. Thank you for the Finance Office support for the completion of this audit. Is there any public input before we go to a vote on accepting the audit? Okay, not seeing any. So Brandy, will you call the roll on agenda item number 8?
Commissioner Ellens?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes.
This does have a resolution number. The resolution number is 2022-13.
Thank you, Brandy. Okay. All right, we're moving back on the agenda. We're on agenda item number 2, which is to proclaim the month of February as National Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month in Donand County. If we can get a motion and a second on this item.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Reynolds, second by Commissioner Chaparro. Commissioner Reynolds, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Take off my mask so you can hear me a little better. This proclamation is to declare the month of February the National Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month in Donand County. I'd like to point out that this is one of the cases where ACEs comes into play, adverse childhood experiences. And we're talking about teens here, we're talking about people who are still not adults yet. And this kind of violence among both male, female, older, younger, in the dating scene is certainly one of the things that is an adverse childhood experience for our children. If you've studied adverse childhood experiences and understand that, it's the potential and actually the results of having adverse childhood experiences from any age upward can actually result in reducing the person's life by 10 to 20 years. It affects them mentally, it affects them forever. And you know, a lot of times we don't think about what experiences our children remember. I ask you to do this. I ask you to think about the earliest memory that you have. Not something somebody told you, but something that actually happened. And I remember my earliest experience, my mother told me, I remember the experience. She said I had 2 experiences that I can remember and still see in my mind before I was walking at 10 months. So you have to think about our children. And obviously, this is a crisis in our county. It's a crisis in our country. And it's something that we have to put a focus on to provide safe places for our teenagers and our children to go, to have communication and to learn about how they can protect themselves from this kind of behavior and to make good decisions. And I think the biggest challenge that we have with our children, and one of the things that I advocate wholeheartedly, is teach them to make decisions early. Let them make choices and simply help them understand the consequences so that they can practice making good choices early enough that they're ready to face these kind of challenges when they become teenagers. And that's my position on that. I'd like to ask Jessica Romero to come forward from LC3. She's going to accept the proclamation. And Mr. Macias, if you would you please read the proclamation? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. With your permission, Mr. Chairman. Whereas February is National Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month, 1 in 3 high school students have been or will be involved in an abusive relationship. And according to the 2019 New Mexico Youth Risk and Resiliency Survey, 8.2% of students grades 9 through 12 in Doñana County have experienced physical dating violence, and 9.6% have been sexually assaulted. And whereas both teen girls and boys report that they have been physically or sexually abused by a dating partner, and it affects all youth regardless of socioeconomic status, gender, sexual orientation, religion, or ethnicity. And whereas teens who suffer dating abuse are subject to long-term consequences such as substance use, eating disorders, suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, and violent behavior. And whereas teens who have encountered abusive relationships are reluctant to seek help in fear of retaliation from their partner, shame, low self-esteem, or lack of resources. And whereas by providing teens with education about healthy relationships, by promoting safe and respectful relationships, and by changing attitudes that support violence, we recognize that dating violence can be prevented. And whereas teen dating violence is an issue that not only affects the teen who is abused, but also their family, friends, and others in their community, we must work together to prevent and help our youth overcome abusive relationships. Now, therefore, the Doñana County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim the month of February as Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. Mr. Chairman, a proclamation for the consideration of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Macias. Ms. Romero, please come on up. Yes. And if you wouldn't mind stating your name for the record as well.
Yes, Jessica Romero. Thank you, Chair, County Manager, and Commissioner Reynolds and the Commission. My name is Jessica Romero, and I'm the community organizer with the LC3 Collaborative, which is the behavioral health sector of the Resilience Leaders of Doñana County. Families and Youth Innovations Plus is the backbone agency of LC3. As Commissioner Reynolds previously said, the mission of Resilience Leaders, who is led by Mayor Pro Tem Cassandra Gondata, is to reduce ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences, in Doñana County. And there are 5 surviving and 5 thriving sectors, and we come together to work on issues such as transportation, food, housing, behavioral health, and others. I want to thank Resilience Leaders and Doñana County for recognizing the importance of ending teen dating violence. As a former school teacher, I've firsthand seen the positive effects of nurturing healthy relationships in my students, and I also know that it takes a village. Together, we can be a positive mentor and role models, especially for a young person who is struggling. It takes one person to change someone's life, but it takes a community to change the environment we want our children to grow up in, and that's a community free of teen dating violence, and we can each do our part. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romero.
No, thank you, Jessica. Okay.
Is there any other public input on the proclamation? Any input from the commission? Okay. If I can, Brandy, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Ellens?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez.
Yes. That proclamation passes 5-0. I was impressed by that one. I was like, oh, man. Okay, we're on agenda item number 3, which is the fiscal year 2022 mid-year budget update. Ms. Dawood.
Good morning, Commissioners. Today I will be presenting the FY22 mid-year budget update. I had come before the Commission in January. At that time, it was a mid-year budget revision. We had made some adjustments to our budget at mid-year. Today, I will be showing the overall picture of how much revenue we have received and how much we have spent as of December 31st, 2021, which is the exact mid-year of our fiscal year. On the first slide, we have the total revenues by type. The gross receipt tax and the property taxes have come in higher than budgeted. On the gross receipt tax, we have also received the equalization tax, which comes in September or October every year. So we had received 1.9 million over budget. That is included in the GRT shown here. Property taxes usually come in higher during the first 6 months of the fiscal year. We are expecting overall a 3% increase in property tax for the full year. Fees and service charge includes detention center revenues and also utility billing collections. We received $2 million from El Paso Electric franchise fee in January. If that was included, it would have been over 50% instead of 42%. Miscellaneous includes the PILT, which is payment in lieu of taxes. It would come in June, so we would see it in the second half of the fiscal year. We are expected to receive $3.35 million for PILT. The miscellaneous also includes $1.2 million settlement revenue, which we received this year. The taxes for flood and gas have been coming in higher than budgeted. The penalty and interest tax, interest includes the late charges for wastewater funds and property taxes. We are expected to be close to 100% by the end of the year. For investment income, we are showing a negative due to fair market value adjustment. So our investments need to be adjusted to the market value for accounting purposes. This does not represent an actual loss. By the time of maturity, this loss would have cleared. So our fair market value adjustment was 939,000, and we had interest income of 413. The net is 526,000. The state distribution includes the Law Enforcement Protection Fund, the state fire distribution, and the EMS distribution. We are at 55% now. We expect to be close to 100% at the end of the fiscal year. On grants and appropriations, our total revenues at this time is at a lower end 6%. We started off our budget with 65 million. We added 20 million for adjustments at mid-year to add new awards and carryover adjustments. Many of these grants are multi-year projects, so we budget the entire grant when we receive it. So we would be spending it, and also it depends on the timing of the projects. So as we incur expenses, we submit for drawdowns, and our grant revenue would increase. Moving on to the next slide, we have expenditure by type. Again, the first column has the adjusted balance. Then we are showing how much we have spent at mid-year, December 31st, and the last column shows it as a percentage of the budget. So personnel and operating costs, we are well below 50% at mid-year. On capital, we are at 18%. The reason is that many of the projects are worked on in the second half of the year. Some of the big projects here include roads initiative, the flood projects, fire restricted fund, and fleet vehicles. So we expect more activity in the second half of the fiscal year. For debt services, we are at 56%. It includes the revenue bonds, geo bonds, detention energy infrastructure loan. For grants, our expenditures are at 13%. We started with 77 million. We added 19.4 million to the budget for new awards and adjustments. And many of the grants are, again, a multi-year, so we would be spending those in the coming years, and our expenditures would go up. On this slide, we have the general fund revenues. Again, property taxes and gross receipt tax are higher than budgeted. On gross receipt tax, we also included the equalization tax, which came in October. It was 1.9 million higher than budgeted. In miscellaneous, we will receive the PILT payment in June for 3.35 million, which will take us close to 100% at the end of the fiscal year. For fees and service charge, it is showing at 38%, but we had received El Paso Electric franchise fee in January, including that would have taken us well over 50. Penalty and interest are for property taxes, for non-rendition penalty and interest on delinquent taxes. Investment income is negative due to the adjustment to market value for accounting purposes. And on grants, our revenue is at 5%. This includes the La Union flooding and BLM grants. Once we do the drawdowns, we would record the revenue from these grants. This slide provides the general fund by departments, how much has been spent for elected officials and the administration departments. We are below 50% on spending at mid-year for almost all of them. For the commissioners, the reason it is showing as higher is because membership fees had to be paid upfront at the beginning of the fiscal year. That included membership for Las Cruces Chamber of Commerce, Transit District, Association of County and Council of Governments. So at the end of the year, we would be below 100%. The county manager's budget also includes external agency, which includes MURVDA, Metro, Narcotics, Animal Services, County Extension Office, Transit District, Film Las Cruces, Downtown Las Cruces, PILT, Spay and Neuter contracts, which are included in that budget. Risk, it's showing at 11%. The reason it is low is they have to pay the general liability and law enforcement premium in March, which is about 3.9 million. So that's when risk management incurs its major expenses. There are no concerns on expenditures of all other departments. They are well below 50% of at mid-year.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Allens?
question on the commissioner's budget. If you can, how much of that would be the responsibility of any personal items that the commissioners incurred and had to be reimbursed for?
Okay. We can check the amount. It should be a very small percentage of this because, as I mentioned, most of the budget is for membership fees, which was paid upfront. We can look up the travel and reimbursement budget. That's what you're asking for.
Okay.
And we will get you the amount in a few minutes. So I will come back to that question in a few minutes.
Yes.
So the budget officer will help me look at the numbers. So these are the other general fund departmental expenditures for community services, public works, and public safety. Again, these have all been under 50% at mid-year. For codes, there was a misposting for a payroll, which should have gone to community development. After the journal entry, it is at 40%. Vector control is showing at 52%. The reason is that insecticides for 40,000 were purchased at the beginning of the fiscal year. And since the budget is smaller, it shows higher at this point. So and on the other departments, there doesn't seem to be any concerns. They are all within budget at mid-year.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under the public safety and the fire budget, the $3,338,245 or $245. This doesn't include the SAFER grant, obviously, but are we going to see that, or do we see that here someplace in the grant? It's not here yet because we're applied for it, but we haven't received it yet.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. But it shows that the SAFER grant. I think a part of our discussion with that grant was also to say that this budget's going to change if we get the SAFER grant, but not for 3 years, correct?
No, it would change for a 3-year period.
Correct.
But the SAFER grant award, we won't find out about it until probably August or September at the very earliest.
Great.
So it has nothing to do with this current year's fiscal budget.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Allens?
after she gives the report.
Okay.
And to answer the question on the commissioner's budget on the previous slide, the travel budget is $2,600 and other operating budget is $2,000 for the commissioners. So as I mentioned, the major portion of the commission's budget is for the membership fees, which was paid to external entities, the Chamber of Commerce, Transit District. The year-to-date activity.
He was asking what is the total budget, the total amount set aside for commissioners and travel, and then what percentage of it has already been used.
Okay. And we will get you more information.
I have a question.
Commissioner Allens?
Could you go to the page where animal control is?
Yes. That's number 6.
Yeah. Animal control has spent far less than I would have hoped, because we do have an animal control issue in this county. Can you explain why their expenditures are only at 22%? And I suspect vacancies may have something to do with it.
And
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, that does impact it substantially, the vacancies that have been there, but we have recently, I believe, filled all but one of the animal control positions. So that percentage will be going up substantially. And please remember that these numbers are good for the first 6 months of the year. So it basically tells you where the spending is at that point, but we'll see a significant uptick the second half.
Okay.
And the budget also includes court hold facility improvements, so we would be seeing more expenditures in the second half of the fiscal year, in addition to vacancies. So here we have a summary of general fund departmental expenditures. And as we can see, they are all below 50% at mid-year. The last line, non-departmental general fund budgets, is higher, and the reason is that it includes the MOA with South Central Solid Waste Authority. We had paid them $1.4 million at the beginning of the fiscal year. So at mid-year, it is showing as higher. That is to operate and maintain Donand County's waste transfer and collection stations. The other departmental expenditures, non-general fund, again, these most of them are well below 50%. Utilities is showing as low because 19.1 million of their 22 million budget is grants. So that would depend on when the grant projects are completed. And similarly, in flood commission also, 11.5 million is grants of the 18 million budget. For roads, a lot of additional work starts in the warmer months, so we are expecting to see more activity in the second quarter. For fleet, a lot of capital expenditures are incurred in the second half when they make the vehicle purchases and pay for the vehicles. So again, we would be expecting more activity in the second half of the fiscal year. Jetport includes restricted funds, and they have seen savings and from vacancies, and also their expenditures are expected to incur as their projects near completion.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Reynolds?
On the previous slide, I saw that the assessor is getting roughly, 1.2 million or something like that from the general budget, the general fund. What is the 1.88 in the department expenditures for the assessor? Is that something we didn't anticipate, or is that construction, or what is that?
These are restricted funds, that comes from the assessor fee, and they are planning to use it for aerial photography flyover project.
I'm sorry, for which project?
For a photography aerial project.
Okay, so this is the project. And this funds came from the assessor's fund that we've been putting aside for training and additional processes? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So this slide provides a summary of our cash position, where we were at the beginning of the fiscal year. Our beginning cash balance was $152 million. We got revenues of 91 million. Our expenditures was 76 million. So we have added 16 million more to our cash reserves than when we started the fiscal year. The adjustment column includes some accounts payable and accounts receivable adjustments, which were at the fiscal year. We had already recorded the revenue or expense, and we paid or received money in the following fiscal year. The biggest item is the last line, the trust and agency, which is at 38.59 million, which is the funds collected and distributed on behalf of other organizations from property tax fund to municipalities and school districts. So our ending cash balance is 208 million, of which about 40 million is not available, as it's pending cash distributions to other government entities. Also, DFA requires us to maintain a 25% reserve on our expenditure budget, so another 18 million, 18.5 is required by DFA to maintain as reserve from the ending cash balance.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What makes up the special revenue of 80 million, roughly 84.46 million? What does that consist of?
The special revenue, 83 million, this is restricted by legislation. It includes the grants, roads, detention, and health funds.
Okay. I thought that, but I wanted to make sure because I didn't see restricted funds here. Thank you.
Again, Mr. Chairman, please, if we can remember that prior commissions have earmarked certain percentages of certain gross receipts tax to be allotted to the Sheriff's Department, to the Fire Department. That's why it's referred to as special revenue, because at least based on the existing policy, it is limited in its utilization to those areas that were previously designated by the commission.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Macias. I would think that that would be called restricted revenue or something like that to better define it, but special's fine as well. Thank you.
Now I will go back to the question on Commissioner's budget. So the total budget spending for salaries at mid-year was at 48%. For travel, the budgeted amount, we had spent just 10%, 26,000 was budgeted, 2,600 was spent, and other expenditures were at 29%, 7,300 was budgeted, and 2,100 was spent. Memberships, we had budgeted 121,000, and we paid 115,000 in memberships upfront, which resulted in being at 96%. So most of the annual memberships were paid at the beginning of the year, and that's why it's showing at a higher, the rate it's showing as 59% instead of, otherwise it would have been well below 50%.
Okay.
And please let me know if there are any other questions or.
Thank you, Ms. Donwood. Are there any other questions? No. Doesn't look like it. Thank you so much. Appreciate your presentation. We're on to the consent agenda items, items 4 through 7. Are there any items on the consent agenda that the commissioners would like to pull for separate discussion or consideration? Okay, if I get a motion and a second to approve agenda items number 4 through 7.
I so move.
Moved by, I heard Commissioner Ellens. Madam Vice Chair, will take that as a second? Okay, are there any questions, comments on the consent agenda? Public input? Okay, not hearing any. So, Randy, will you call the roll on agenda items 4 through 7?
Commissioner Ellens?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes.
I have a couple of resolutions. Item number 4, 2022-14. Item number 5, 2022-15.
Thank you, Brandy. All right, we're on to agenda item number 9, which is a resolution establishing approval to enact policies, procedures as required of the Donand County Sheriff's CALIA accreditation. If I can get a motion and a second to begin the discussion on this item.
So moved.
Commissioner Reynolds, I'll take that as a motion. Commissioner Ellens, can I take yours as a second?
Yes.
Okay. All right, very good. Sheriff Stewart, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Welcome to 2/22/22. If you don't know, that is the date today. Mr. Macias is wearing his celebratory tie in honor of it. It is a good occasion for us all.
Absolutely. Solely for this item. Brand new. It even has the Valentine's into it. Yeah.
It's literally the Tuesday 2.
Yes, it's another 2. I believe I have a PowerPoint. Felipe, or if who's ever back there, we could begin. I don't usually, but. Oh, can I just advance it? Okay. Perfect. Thank you. I may ask him to advance it, just so we'll get there. Here we are. Next slide. This is a red letter day or whatever color we want to make it. 21 years ago to this month, almost to the day, was the last time a sheriff presented for your approval and resolution a policy and procedure manual. That was Sheriff Juan Hernandez. And it was under the direction of County Manager David King. At that point, the policies and procedures consisted of just 52 specific policies. They were probably appropriate for 21 years ago, given the nature of things at the time. In the past 21 years, this attempt has been actually started and stopped for reasons I'm unaware of. In 2006, there was an attempt to begin the process to create these policies. In 2012, 2016, it was also started and abruptly stopped. Again, I'm unsure of why that occurred. When I ran for office, I was given a strong and clear message from my constituents, from our constituents, that accountability is very, very important for any best practice of any law enforcement agency in the United States. Our constituents wanted that. They wanted transparency on top of that. And I promised it, and today, at least, I'm delivering a part of that. So there were, you might ask yourself, what happened between 2006 and 2020? How did we enforce policies? How were directives interpreted, whatever? It was through a series of emails issued by the sheriff and or whoever was second in charge. They would issue directives that were often reactionary, poorly thought out, could be easily misinterpreted, were not clear, did not really reflect where the agency was at the time in terms of best practices or even vetted laws. You must understand we have statutory obligations. We must have our policies and procedures coincide with current case law. Those directives and emails, when I got into office and looked into them, were frankly an abomination. They were difficult, if at all, to hold people accountable for any kind of wrongdoing or straying from accepted practices. What happened was we had to revert to the human resource manual, policies and procedures for everything. And that works on a broad spectrum. It works for people who work in the clerk's office or work in facilities, but as Detention Director Baker would probably tell you, it doesn't always work in our line of work. We need very specific policies that address the kind of technical work we do. So with that in mind, we endeavored, and I approached you in 2020, for a resolution to begin the process to obtain CALIA certification. And as I've told you at that time, it's an international certification process. It is designed to take 3 years. So we started in 2020, and we hope by the end of this year to be fully accredited. But let me tell you what we found. We found the need for 147 policies, somewhat of a leap from Sheriff Hernandez's days, right? 147. Now, there are 180 CALIA policies ultimately we need to meet to be fully accredited. However, we're on track to begin accreditation for part of those tiers. It's a process. So you might say, well, what happens now if indeed you accept our resolution today? Then CALEA auditors come in and they begin a series of audits to determine, number one, that our policies actually fit our organization, that they actually reflect who we are, and second of all, that we actually follow them, that we are accountable to our own policies and practices. So that said, this is a step. This is a step, and we're very excited today. I really can't underscore I need to underscore the effort that's gone into this. This was not, as some might accuse us of, a cut and paste job. This took an enormous amount of what I would call sweat equity to get here today. It is nearly 900 pages long, and it's a work in progress. It is a document that yearly we will return to you or to your people who follow in your footsteps and ask for amendments, changes, improvements on. This is a living document. This is not just today you're voting and you'll never see any more of us on it, because it's about humans, it's about people. And as such, it has to be a changing, living document. So that said, I do want to thank Nelson Gooden for, as several of us did, reading every one of these policies. I think I'm pretty close to that. Maybe he didn't read one, but I think he read every single one of them, and I thank him for that, as did my captain, as did my lieutenant, several of our sergeants, and even myself. Every single one. You will note there are 5 sections. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Was that your light reading on your vacation?
We're off.
Nelson?
We're off. Do another one, please. There you go. You will note right now there are 5 sections. Administration alone has 50 policies, operations 68. I don't need to read the rest to you. You can see for yourselves. But just know that it's a very specific and technical document. So again, we'll do an annual evaluation. We'll complete it, our own audit internally yearly, and finish that audit December 31st, so we can come to the commission the beginning of the next year to update, amend, or actually redo or add policies as needed. So that said, again, in 2020, you accepted the resolution for us to pursue CALEA accreditation. I ask you today to accept this resolution as an important step toward that end. With that said, do you have any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Ellens.
Sheriff, did I understand you to say that this is not the complete package in order to be accredited, that you have to add more policies?
No, sir, that will need to be audited now by the CALEA auditors. They come and actually review our reports that are pulled randomly. They'll actually come into our operation. They will interview everyone from deputies to captains about implementation of our policies or how they relate to our day-to-day activities.
So if you pass the audit, then you're eligible for accreditation?
Correct. Or they give us the...
What happens if you don't get accredited?
We'll probably have another year to do that, and we'll have to pay them again. You pay them once for 3 years and hope you can do it, and they would certainly give us another chance. I would have to go before the CALEA board and explain why we had failed at that process and how we expect to improve if that were to happen.
I want to compliment your department on the fact that we're seeing fewer lawsuits, and that's without these policies in place.
Thank you.
Could it be that in the past, we had so many lawsuits brought against the department because the then current policies were inadequate?
Sir, I don't know the answer to that, but what I do know is when you have policies and procedures in place, I think you would concur, there is less litigation. And certainly, we anticipate our insurance burden to decrease as a result of this as well.
What do you get in return for qualifying for accreditation? What does that do for the department in terms of local and state standing?
Well, it's a fairly significant effort that gets recognized not only in the state. I think I've told you before, there are only 3 other agencies in the state that are so accredited. So it gives us a certain, I think, a certain credibility statewide. It also gives us that nationwide. I sit on a few national boards, and for me to be able to go before as a member of those boards and say we are accredited, it is a fairly significant plus in our column.
Would it see an increase in grant money?
Sir, that's a good question. I really would have no idea. I do believe that when you apply for grants and show your credibility in terms of things like policies and procedures and standard operating methods and utilization of best practices nationwide, I do believe ultimately that certainly enhances any grant application.
I would think so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Additional questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Chaparro.
Thank you. Good morning, Sheriff Stewart. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you.
Sheriff, I have a question for you, just because I spend so much time in the courts, and so I see things that arise, and I'd like to thank Mr. Gooden for looking over this, because that makes me feel a lot better. But I was hoping that the Sheriff's Department could move towards maybe some crisis intervention training so that the officers are safer and that the public is safer. Is that something that you're thinking of implementing in the future for the deputies?
Thank you for the question, Madam. It's in the policy. It's called crisis intervention training. And while you know that we have certain standards to meet for state certification as well as biennium training, we have taken that CIT step. As a matter of fact, we received a $140,000 grant about a month ago to advance train all of our deputies in crisis intervention. So we're not only is it in the policy, but we're actually reaching out to move that timetable ahead as fast as possible.
All right, and so that would include possibly including the crisis intervention training at the academy level, so that all the new deputies are receiving that kind of training, even though you'd have to probably extend the academy training?
Good question, ma'am. It doesn't really extend it. Bear in mind that there's a minimum number of hours that we must meet, but we save time at the end for the type of training we want to implement. So it's unique to us. Second of all, it will be everyone from basic academy recruits all the way to through detectives, through senior deputies, because we never know when we might be on some of these types of calls. And additionally, we're looking to move in some specific directions with regard to crisis intervention ourselves. So this is a step in that process. And we're very lucky that Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Administration, gave us that $140,000 grant. We are I'm sorry, I misspoke. We're one of 5 agencies in the United States that has been selected to have advanced training with the International Association of Chiefs of Police that speak to peer support for the idea that if we're of sound mind and body, we will better serve the public.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Macias.
In addition, just to respond to Commissioner Chaparro's question, although certainly it is over 800 pages, but I believe that the crisis intervention program that the sheriff is addressing, and it addresses it in specificity, you can look at 200-042. That's the crisis intervention program, and I think that if you review that, maybe with a little bit more detail, you'll have the level of comfort that the sheriff is communicating.
And thank you. It was a very voluminous report, and it took a lot of time to just kind of peruse it, but to just get specifics, thank you.
Mr. Macias, and I'll add, I think, Commissioner Chaparro, I know there was another one, I think, what, a 200-009 that talked about responding to people with mental illness and how to respond for the deputies. So that can be, I think, augment that response as well.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Allens?
does HR have any comments on this?
Mr. Chairman, let me suggest to you that there was extensive discussions between Mr. Gooden, Ms. Weir, and the sheriff's command staff related to a review of this program. A number of issues were addressed, and we believe addressed appropriately. The document, as it is being presented to the commission, comes with county management endorsement of it. So I don't believe that there's any issues for us to address here before the commission. I believe all of those changes, or all of those discussions, ultimately resulted in some changes within the document itself.
Sheriff?
Yes, sir.
You said that there are 3 other DASO agencies in the state that have been accredited. Which counties were they?
Three other agencies in the state: Farmington, Los Alamos, and the state police.
What about Albuquerque?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Allens. Commissioner Reynolds?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Sheriff Stewart, thank you for the presentation, and Mr. Macias for adding your support. I sat on the board, as most of you know. I sat on the New Mexico Association of Counties Board, and I sat on the board that actually deals with the lawsuits that come through at the state level and try to determine some of the procedures and policies that we need to put in place at the state level for all the counties in order to reduce the risk and the burden and the cost of our insurance. And some of you may not know this, but in order to get any insurance for counties right now is a very difficult thing to do. We did about 3 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago, implement a certification program for the detention centers. Why? Because the top 4 things that we have in the county that are our risk are the detention center, the sheriff's department, human resources, and actual driving. Those are the ones that we actually lose the most money and have the greatest number of lawsuits. Since we have implemented the certification program at the detention centers, our cases have actually, and our lawsuits have dropped significantly, and our costs at the detention center have actually decreased where we have the certifications. The county detention centers who actually have the certification get a reduced cost charged by New Mexico Association of Counties of approximately 4 to 10%, depending on which year we're talking about. So immediately when we get a certification here, and oh, by the way, we are trying to determine the certification program for the sheriff's departments throughout the state as well, to see what kind of program we can put in place in order for us to be able to afford aftermarket insurance, okay, above and beyond what we put aside as the counties. We are still trying to determine the program, but the CALIA certification is currently one of the programs and certifications that we don't intend to currently qualify because it takes so much. A lot of our smaller counties cannot accomplish what we're trying to do here. If we could get every one of our counties to become CALIA certified, which is nationally recognized, it would impact us in several ways. One, it would reduce our insurance. Second, it would reduce our lawsuits. Third, it would increase our success in the lawsuits that are brought to us. But in many cases, with something like this in place and the procedures followed and approved at the state level and the national level, a lot of lawyers won't even touch us. So this is, maybe CALEA is not the right answer. Maybe, I think that's up to the sheriff and up to the board here to help her to determine that. But certainly having a certification and a policy and procedures that's not 21 years old is absolutely necessary for us to protect the investment that our citizens in the county have made in and the trust that they've made in us to manage those assets correctly. So just from my perspective, and I don't know if the rest of the board agrees, but I see this as a good step for the county. I think it would be a good step for the state. I just don't know if all the counties are going to be able to do it. And if we don't do CALEA, I guess give me another option, because we've got to do something. And a procedure is 21 years old is insufficient and ineffective. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. Sheriff, I don't mind, and I think along the lines of what Commissioner Reynolds is speaking of, I know we've had some legislation that has been, particularly over the last year, that has either been passed or attempted to be passed. How has that affected the process and the policies that I guess that you bring forth to us, and has it caused any issues with compliance for the state on laws and statutes that have been passed recently? I don't know if I made that, I kind of went up on a thing, but I guess I'm just kind of curious as to how that affected your process, and two, did it cause any issues within the procedures, I guess, because I know this has been going for a couple of years now, so I know as you're going through the revision process, I didn't know how that affected you.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I was a commissioner on the Civil Rights Commission, and if you're referring to that, the state did get rid of qualified immunity and also made the civil rights actions broader relative to what is available to state citizens than federally. That said, it really didn't deter us. It doesn't really redirect our path. A lot of that from my work as a commissioner will not be realized immediately. You will see the benefit and or deficit within 2 or 3 years as a result of getting rid of qualified immunity. But it really shouldn't impact it, because the reality is if you act within the law and you act within the policy, we are indemnified under law by the state of New Mexico. So it just pushes us to follow these guidelines even more specifically.
Okay, and the other question I had was around, I think within the records division, that's 200-057. I know it lists some of the records that DASO keeps, but it's not an extensive list. Is there any plans, or I guess I know as you're going through CALEA certification and maybe I'm just looking at the wrong place, I guess outline further what the requirements are for retention on different type of records?
Well, we follow state guidelines about retention. So, for example, at the most far end, you have homicide cases that will never be destroyed, and then you have routine things that are destroyed after 7 years. We also keep a number of records beyond criminal matters. Of course, we have civil, because we do civil process serving, we have civil records. And again, all of those are fairly closely and specifically dictated by state and federal retention laws.
And I think of the body count, there's just so much more records that you're having to maintain. And that's one thing I just wanted to, and maybe it's something I can take offline and just get a little better educated on, because, I think there's always that like I said, I mean, there's a ton of work in this and policies, and maybe I, just missed on a couple of these things. And so I would just love to be able to follow up with you on those.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, body cam policy is specific in here. It's its own policy, and we meet the state guideline, the state law for retention and of that video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
It's its own marked section.
Got it. Thank you so much, Sheriff.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Chaparro?
following up on what you said regarding record retention, and I did see that section specifically. Sheriff, will you and your deputies be working closely with the DA? Because I know some of these videos have to be retained, in some cases, for years. And I mean, because these cases, especially with the COVID that has gone on, we're about 2 years backlogged in the courts right now. And so if I'm looking at, for example, a DWI, that the record is to be retained for 365 days, I mean, are you able, do you have the capacity and are able to retain those records for a longer period of time?
Madam Chair, yes. Let me point out that on DWI, for example, we have a 5-day turnaround with the DA. So all of the reports and everything, including video, car cam and body cam, goes to the district attorney. So we keep ours for a certain period of time because at their end, sometime they don't, for whatever reason, keep it or maintain it, and we have to resend it. So I guess the answer is it depends on the issue, and there is retention that's going on continually, not only in our end of things, but in the DA's end of things. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Chaparro. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Allens?
Sheriff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I saw recently an email or some other document that said all your vacancies had been filled. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, yes, and Commissioner, yes, we are filled. Just let me clarify one thing. We must maintain about 20 vacancies every year to fill our academy, so that if we get 12, 15 cadets, recruits, then they fill part of the 20, and then we get to fill additional 5 with lateral deputies. So if you were to look at our schedule, it may look like we're not fully staffed, but in fact, yes, we are.
Okay. Glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Allens. Any other comments, questions?
I have one more comment.
Commissioner Reynolds.
We are still dealing with some cases from previous administrative sheriffs. Okay? These policies are necessary to do something. We've got to have something so we can better provide the safety for the citizens that we need and not have to deal with a fallout of something for 5 to 10 years after it happened. This policy will hopefully allow us to get procedures in place that everybody can read, understood, and act on to make the public safer, make the community safer, and help us to better understand how we can do the best job we can. And so, I mean, 52 pages of policy, I think everyone can agree that is insufficient. What is this one? I think it's 800 pages. Maybe that's overkill right now, but if we have overkill, we can back off of it if we need to. Now, one of my bosses used to tell me when I was working, he said, when you start out first being a leader or a manager, you have to get tough. You have to be tough because it's a lot easier to soften up than it is to try to get tough later after you've been too soft. And I think this book gives us some guidelines to start that process, and we have to do it sometime. That's just my thoughts, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds. Okay. There's no other comments from the commission. I'll open it up for public input. I don't know if there are any members of the public that will like to provide input. Okay. Seeing none, then Brandy, Can you call the roll, please, on agenda item number 9?
Commissioner Ellens?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes.
This item does have a resolution number. The number is 2022-16.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Sheriff Stewart. All right, we're on to agenda item number 10, which is the Integrated Maquila Solutions LLC Tecma Local Economic Development Act Project Ordinance for an award of up to $100,000 and associated budget revision and resolution. If I can get a motion and a second for approval
So
of the
moved.
item. Was that Commissioner Chaparro? Did you? Okay. And then seconded by Commissioner Ellens. Ms. Ainsworth, good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a LIDA award by the State of New Mexico Economic Development Department for Integrated Maquila Solutions, Tecma, for a facility at 4851 Avenida Krill in Santa Teresa, where they will establish operations and employ a minimum of 25 full-time personnel by December 31st of 2026. The award is $100,000, which will be distributed to them based on a schedule that is provided by the state. If there are no questions, or if you have any questions at this time, I'd be happy to answer.
Commissioner Ellens?
What does this entity manufacture?
They actually, they're a worldwide corporation, and from what I understand, they primarily manufacture toys. And so they have established here in the county, not just this location, but they have a couple of others which they're doing shipping and receiving to distribute items through to various places within the country. I do have Louise Marquez from NMED, and she may have some additional information on what specifically what their products are.
So is the owner of the company in the back?
As well as the owner of the company is here as well, if you would like to hear from them.
Sure, I'd welcome anyone up that would like to speak. Ms. Marquez, or any representative from the company, whoever.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Louise Marcus with New Mexico Economic Development. Integrated Maquila Solutions is a logistics firm. A lot of trucking, distribution, warehousing, that type deal, and bedding and toys are both involved. And I think beyond that, I'm going to let Ms. Kotowski kind of elaborate a little more. Sound good?
Hi, good afternoon already? No, it's
Good morning,
still
morning.
Thank you, Christina Ainsworth and Ms. Marquez. Tecma Group is a shelter company. The shelter, they manufacture, they represent other companies from all over the world, and they manufacture. And this building is really important, and I really want to appreciate for the efforts involved, because it is the first building that Tecma puts in the Santa Teresa, New Mexico area. And this will be a distribution center for a company called MGA, who does little tykes. Everybody's familiar with the turtle, the sand turtle, and they manufacture in Juarez, and they will be distributing from Santa Teresa, New Mexico, which was the core of the industrial business, Santa Teresa, to distribute, to make this warehousing and distribution centers. But beyond the 25 employees that we intend to have in the warehouse, the impact that this provides is much, much bigger, because it will create, just beginning in the first year, more than 70 truckloads a day crossing through the Santa Teresa port of entry. And by saying that, seems like small, but it's not small, because it's more than 35,000 a year. And these trucks will be fueling probably in the new Love Center in Santa Teresa, which has been opened recently. and we will be consuming food from that center as well. And it is from the Tecma founder, Mr. Russell, that I spoke to him before we came into the hearing. He says this goodwill from the county extends an impact to the Tecma group to already have interest in opening another distribution center in the same area. So I really want to thank you. Thank you, Christina and Luis. You've been magnificent for your support.
Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind saying your name for the record as well.
Miriam Baca-Kotkowski, and I am president of the Tecma Transportation Services, Inc., where we have a Mexican entity as well, and we do a lot of logistics door-to-door between Mexico and the U.S.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. Are there any questions on this agenda item? Commissioner Chaparro?
Mr. Chair, just to thank Miriam. I've known her for many years, and I know how much she's worked to bring new businesses and ventures to Santa Teresa. So thank you very much.
Susana, it's so nice to see you. Big hug.
Thank you, Commissioner Chaparro. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Public input? All right. All right, Brandy, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Ellens?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo?
Yes.
Chair Sanchez?
Yes.
This item does have a resolution number. That resolution is 2022-17.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank
There's
you, Ms.
also
Ingram.
an ordinance.
Oh, yeah. Wait. Yes.
Okay.
It's actually an ordinance, not a resolution. Mr. Chairman, so the board is adopting an ordinance plus a budget resolution.
The ordinance number will be 327-2022.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, down to agenda item number 11, which is any correspondence for the county. Brandy?
There is one, Christine Sines.
Okay. All right, we reached the end of our agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh,
Just with your permission, I meant to do it earlier, but I didn't see him here in the room. I would like to introduce our new Assistant County Manager, Jonathan Macias, who's here with us now. Are we already afternoon? Yeah, no, this morning. So I want to make sure, again, he's been working with us most recently as the kind of the director or manager for our rent and utilities program, of which we have now expended $7.3 million and helped over 1,100 people. It's been exceedingly successful. Now he joins us as Assistant County Manager.
Very good. Commissioner Reynolds?
Yeah, I have two questions. Does he get his own office, or or is he going to continue to use mine?
Absolutely, Commissioner. You are soon to be welcome back to your long-suffering office. We'll have it cleaned up really well for you before we do a transition. Not only does he move to another room, but the entire rent operation is going to move down the block.
Yeah.
So everybody's office will open up real soon.
Yeah, make sure it gets fumigated. The other question, does it come with a razor? Looks like he lost his razor this morning.
I think he was inspired by you to age up a little bit here with a little bit of a beard, but we'll leave it to him as to whether he's shaving or not.
I guess it's the office. It must be the office that does it. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Macias. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And any other comments? I'll just say congratulations, Mr. Macias. And welcome to this wild and crazy bunch. Thank you. All right, if, this has reached the end of our agenda, so if there's no opposition, we'll call this meeting adjourned at 11:28 a.m. Thank you all.